All right, welcome to Virtual Office Hours. Consolidating versus refinancing your student loans, sponsored by the American Bar Association and nonprofit AccessLex Institute. The Virtual Office Hours series connects you with experts to help you thrive as a law student and prepare for life after law school. We're really excited to have LeAndra Ross with us again this time, and she's going to be talking to us about the pros and cons of student loan consolidation and refinancing. LeAndra is the Regional Director for the South at the AccessLex Center for Education and Financial Capability. With 15 years of higher education and financial aid administration experience, LeAndra has passionately worked with students from a variety of backgrounds on making their college experience realistic and affordable. LeAndra, we'll turn things over to you now.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you all for being here this evening to talk about consolidating versus refinancing your student loans. This is a hot topic and one of which we are delighted to talk with you and help you strategize through when making your decision on whether or not you should be consolidating or refinancing your student loans. I see many of you are getting signed in, and I'd like some interaction. Even though you can't currently unmute yourself, I still want to know who is listening in. So if you'll open up that chat panel and let me know what law school you attend and what year you are at that law school. So I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Drop that. You can drop it to everyone, or you can select the host and panelists, and that will come directly to me, and I'll be happy to receive that. So take some seconds to let me know what law school you attend, or if you're graduating in May, congratulations. I know you still got that bar exam to take, but we take a moment and we pause and give thanks for the journey of completing law school. Okay, we've got South Texas College of Law 2023. So one more year, right? And then you're out of there. Jennifer, oh, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for being here. Mitchell Hemline, okay, third year, December. Almost there, almost there. It's more of you on the line. So tell me what law school you attend and what year you are at that law school. Great, great. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Awesome. I have some coming in to me directly. We've got some 2Ls in the building. Thank you for being here. Awesome. Okay. So we're going to dig right on in. This is 30 minutes. So this is a quick webinar with quick bites of information about consolidating versus refinancing your student loans. There were some questions that you all had and submitted prior to our time today, but I encourage you, if you think of any questions during our time, go ahead and put those in the chat panel. I think we have both chat panels activated. So the general chat panel and the Q&A chat panel, whichever one is most convenient for you, feel free to drop those questions in there. For those of you who are unfamiliar with us, we are AccessLex Institute, a nonprofit legal education organization that's been around nearly 40 years. We celebrate 40 years next year, and we focus on the advocacy, accessibility, and affordability of legal education. And so everything we do centers around those three tenets. Some of you, and probably the majority of you, attend a law school that partners with us to offer our free personal finance program called Max by AccessLex. We are in, I believe, we're entering our fifth or sixth year of Max by AccessLex. And it is a robust, comprehensive, again, free personal finance program that's curated for and by law school students. So a few years ago, we surveyed 5,000 law school students and administrators across 40 different law schools and asked them, if we were to create a personal finance program for law school students, what should that program look like? How do you want to receive the information? What are some of the financial topics that you wish you would have known in your first year, in your second year, in your third year, or your fourth year if you're in a part-time JD program? or for life after law school. So that Max by AccessLex program is offered at nearly 180 of the 190 so ABA accredited law schools. So if you attend one of those, thank you again for being here. All of you have access to our Ask Aetna platform. Aetna stands for Education Network at AccessLex. So think of it as our hub. It is our portal, which houses a lot of our free tools, resources, program services for you. So if you are at a Max participating school, you access Max through Ask Aetna. If you are not at a Max participating school, that's okay. We have a bunch of other free content available to you in the way of academic or student success content and bar success content. So it takes a few seconds to create. Again, it is free. All you need is your name, your school that you attend, create a username, a password, identify what year you entered law school, and that will open up your access to a world of great information for your law school journey. We do always have a legal disclaimer that we say before everything we do, of course, and that's to say that the information provided in AccessLex events and other AccessLex resources is being made available to assist you in developing your personal financial strategy and is not intended as investment, tax, or legal advice. You should consider whether the information is appropriate for your needs and where applicable, seek advice from an appropriate professional advisor. So myself, the other colleagues on my team, we're all accredited financial counselors, and we can talk with you on a wide range of financial topics, including your financial aid, including student loans, including talking about consolidating and refinancing your student loans. But we talk to you on budget management, credit management, job offers and comparing job offers, retirement, a little bit about investing, a little bit about taxes. But if we get into the weeds of those areas or anything where you might be best to consult with a lawyer, we'll let you know what we know on a high level about those areas, but we'll let you know that you might benefit from adding those professionals to your conversations. Okay, so let's get into what all this means and what are some things that you need to consider. What is consolidating? What is refinancing? Should you do one? Should you do the other? Or should you do neither? And how we approach this topic is by first making sure we identify facts. And so that's where we're going to work through. Also, a part of this with any loans that you take on, it doesn't matter what kind of loan it is, your federal student loans, any private student loans, auto loans, mortgages, you need to make sure you understand the loan terms of which you're signing up for. Then also that leads you into weighing the pros and cons. So we want to identify what are the pros of consolidating, what are the cons of consolidating, what are the pros of refinancing, what are the cons of refinancing, which will then hopefully allow you to make the most sound and informed decision for yourself. So let's start out by identifying some facts, but this is going to center around three things I really need you to know. And that's how we're going to lay the foundation for our time today. Oftentimes you might hear people use the word consolidation and refinancing interchangeably, but they are actually two different processes. The similarity between them is the process of taking multiple loans, multiple separate loans, and combining them into one new loan. But that is where the similarity ends. Outside of that, they are different, and we'll talk about those differences. Two, then they accomplish different goals. And so we'll unpack those different goals for you. And if you are considering refinancing your student loans, and again, we'll talk about what refinancing specifically is, oftentimes people get caught up in the reason why they want to refinance is because they can potentially get a lower interest rate. And that's good, right? We absolutely want that. But that is not the only consideration that we should make in making an informed decision about whether or not we should refinance our student loans. And so we'll talk about some of those other considerations that you should make. Starting with number one, however, understanding the difference between consolidating and refinancing your student loans and how do they differ. So while the process of taking multiple student loans and combining them into one new loan is similar. The process in which you go about applying for those things are different, and we'll talk a little bit about that. The loan terms are different, as well as the types of loans that qualify for each of those processes. And then finally, the interest rate determination. So the interest rate that you are given in a consolidation and the determination for that is different from how an interest rate is determined with a private refinance student loan. So the next few slides have a lot of text contained in them, but I'm going to talk through this. Tracy, I did send you an email just shortly with a nice document. I'm sorry, let me go back. A nice document that unpacks a lot of what I'm going to be talking about this evening. So feel free to share that with those who are in attendance today. So you might take notes for yourself, and that's good. Sometimes people are a note taker and it helps them, but I also have a great document that is going to kind of pull all of this together that you can reference later. So let me get through the difference between consolidating and refinancing, and then I'll stop and see what questions we have before moving forward. So consolidation, again, is the combining of multiple loans into one. However, consolidation refers to federal student loans only. So no other types of loans can be included in a federal student loan consolidation. And in fact, the only type of federal student loan consolidation that can happen is what's called a direct consolidation loan. So if you are a current law student right now and you are borrowing federal student loans for your education, you are borrowing either a federal direct unsubsidized loan, that probably sounds familiar to you, right? But there's only so much of that that you can get per academic year. You get up to $20,500 of that per academic year as a graduate or professional student. If you need additional monies beyond that direct unsubsidized loan, then you might be then borrowing the supplemental federal direct student loan, which is the direct graduate plus loan. Those loans, while they are different, they all fall under what is called the William D. Ford Direct Loan Program, which is essentially a federal government student loan program where the Department of Education is the lender of your student loans. So if you are consolidating your student loans, then that consolidated loan means that it is under the direct loan program, hence the name direct consolidation loan. So again, only federal loans are eligible for a consolidation. The interest rate is actually a formula that everyone is subjected to who undergoes a direct loan consolidation. So it is not based on any credit review process. And essentially what they do is they take the interest rates of all the loans, the federal loans that you are including into that new direct consolidated loan. And there's an average, but it's a weighted average, which means whichever of your loans has the highest balance is typically what is going to pool the most on your overall new interest rate on the direct consolidated loan. So it's a weighted average of rates is how we refer to that. And that is what your interest rate is, and it is a fixed rate, and that will be your new interest rate on that new consolidated loan. So this becomes an option for people who have been borrowing for quite a while. So I always use my personal example because I think it's such a good example to explain a mixed federal student loan portfolio. When I attended undergrad and grad school, I attended at the same institution. And I attended from a period of 2002 to 2009. And during that time, my institution had the federal direct loan program, but there was also another federal loan program that existed for student loans, and that was called the Federal Family Education Loan Program, or FFEL, or FEL. You might hear people refer to it in those terms. And it essentially allowed the private market to lend out federal student loans, okay? So your federal Stafford loan could be through a private bank or private lender, depending on how your institution had it set up. Well, that program of the private market being involved in lending federal student loans was eliminated in 2010 under the Obama administration. And then what was said is that the Department of Ed is the only entity that can lend out federal student loans, hence direct loan program. So the direct loan program persisted, and it continues to be the only federal loan program to date. There also was a former federal loan program, maybe some of you have heard of it, called a federal Perkins loan. Now that was eliminated a few years ago as well, but you might still have active loans that you need to pay back under the federal Perkins loan program. So when I graduated, I had federal Perkins loans, I had the FFEL federal loans, and I had direct federal loans. So I had a mixed portfolio. And I knew when I graduated that I was going to have to pay 3 different entities back. That for my Perkins loan, that for my FFEL federal loans, and that for my direct loans. I also knew that I wasn't sold completely, but I figured I probably was going to be mostly in the public sector realm, which is important to know because we're going to talk about public service loan forgiveness in just a moment and why that's important with the type of federal student loans that you have. So I knew that because I had a mixed portfolio, some of my loans would not qualify for loan forgiveness if I kept them how they were. So I decided to consolidate my non-direct student loans over to a direct consolidation loan, get them in one place with one servicer. Okay, so this might be an option to pursue if you have different federal loan servicers. Now, if you borrow federal loans, if you did not borrow federal loans prior to 2010, you probably only have federal direct loans. So you should have one servicer, and therefore consolidation may not make sense for you. This typically is a process for people who have a mixed loan type. Okay, as the years go on, we're getting further and further away from people who need to consolidate, but there are still certainly people who might need to. Refinancing, same concept. You're taking multiple loans and combining them into one new loan. However, you are able to combine federal loans or private loans or both. It is whatever suits your fancy. So you are actively seeking a refinance loan through a private bank or private lender. You are including in that application which loans you want them to essentially take over. And then once they take them over, they are your new lender and you are done with the previous lender. So if you included federal loans in that, that means you are done with the Department of Education or whomever your loan servicer was at that time, okay? Your interest rate is different from a consolidated loan. This is based on a credit review process, which is determined by the lender of your choosing. So it is based on credit worthiness. So based on whatever their credit standards or review process is, or what they're including in the assessment of your credit, and the interest rate determination is what they will base that on. So you might see with refinance loans that they offer you a fixed or variable rate. And there will be a spread based on those credit standards that they have imposed. So you will need to understand what those are and what you're going to be subjected to if you're going to refinance. Before I move on, I'm just going to take a quick peek at the questions. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to hold off on answering these until we get past the slides, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. But keep those questions coming. So now moving on to number 2, consolidation and refinancing accomplish different goals. And some of this I've already talked through already, but we'll kind of go through it again. So for consolidation, if you want to organize and simplify your loan payments, so again, you have a mixed federal student loan portfolio. Maybe you have some Perkins loans, maybe you have some older federal student loans that you borrowed prior to 2010, and you have your law school loans, and you want to get them in one place and streamline your loan payments. That might be a goal for you. If you want to take advantage of income-driven repayment plans, so there are currently 5 different income-driven repayment plans that are available on federal student loans, but you may not be eligible for all of those 5 depending on the loan types you have and when you started borrowing or how long ago you started borrowing. So sometimes people will consolidate their loans so that those older loans or those other loan types will be eligible for the newer income-driven repayment plans that are available. And then if you want to qualify for loan forgiveness. So under specifically the Department of Education's Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, there's only one type of loan types of loans that qualify for public service loan forgiveness, and those are direct loans only. No Perkins loans, no federal family education loan programs, no older federal loans that you may have. They have to be direct loans. Hence why I mentioned earlier why you might want to consolidate if you have ineligible loan types. You want to move them over to a direct consolidated loan. So if you know that that is going to be your journey, you want to take advantage of loan forgiveness, you might then consolidate your federal student loans so that those ineligible loan types can be eligible for loan forgiveness. For refinancing, some of your goals might be that you want to obtain a lower interest rate than that of what you received on your federal student loans. Now, if you've been borrowing federal student loans over the years, they're going to have different interest rates because interest rates are set every year for federal student loans. Your interest rates are fixed on your federal student loans, but they change and are determined, the interest rates are determined for the upcoming year, typically around May. So we'll start finding out here soon what next year's, the 22-23 academic year interest rates will be for federal direct student loans. So you might want to, or believe you have the ability to obtain a lower interest rate by refinancing your student loans, and maybe based on your credit worthiness, the strength of your credit. So therefore, then your goal might be, because of that, you want to save money in the long run because a lower interest rate means lower interest accrues than that of what would have accrued on your federal loans if they had a higher interest rate than what you got on your private refinance loan. And then also, if you are wanting to pay your loans down in a very accelerated fashion, you might refinance. That might be a goal for you, and thus you want to switch your loans over to a private refinance loan. And some people do. They have one of their financial goals is to accelerate paying their student loans down aggressively, and they have the means and the ability to do that, or they will make sacrifices in order to accomplish that goal at a faster pace. So you might consider refinancing so that you can get the lower interest rate, save money over time, and pay your loans down in a very accelerated fashion. With any debt, the longer you hold on a debt that has interest accruing, the more interest will accrue over time. The least amount of time you hold on to a debt, the least amount of time you're allowing interest to accrue. Okay, so that speaks to that bullet point. And finally, if you're strongly considering refinancing, okay, so you're trying to move your loans over to a private lender or private bank. Remember I said the interest rate is important, but we want to consider more than just the interest rate. Great if you can get an interest rate that is less than what you receive on your federal student loans. But also, what are the fees? Are there any fees associated with doing so? Are there any fees on the front end, on the throughout the life of the loan, on the back end? These are questions to find answers to. What are the repayment plans that are available? Now, I don't think it's any surprise that private loan debt generally is not as flexible as federal student loan debt. Federal student loan debt will be some of the most flexible debt that you will ever take on because of the number of repayment plans that currently exist and the number of protections that you have in place in the event that you are unable to make payments on your federal student loans. And I think COVID is a good example of that, right? We had the CARES Act, which was the relief package that was given to Americans back in March of 2020. And part of that CARES Act package included release for federal direct student loan borrowers. Since March 2020, there has been payment pause on those who have federal direct loans and 0% interest accrual on those loans. And we are now 2 years over on that. That's a type of protection, right? So you have to know that moving federal loans over to a private refinance loan, you will give up those protections. So you need to make sure you understand from the new lender new private lender what repayment plan options are available. Understanding, again, there won't be a lot of flexibilities, but you want to be informed as you can. Interest capitalization, which is essentially saying, when does your interest, your outstanding interest get added into the outstanding principal? Now, on federal student loans, generally, there is interest capitalization. So that exists on federal student loans as well as private student loans. But the schedule part of that is saying you need to understand when your interest can capitalize. When is the schedule, or what are the triggering events that will cause interest to capitalize? There might be times that you will not be able to pay your interest off before it capitalizes. But as you progress in your career and your salary, perhaps you will then have the resources later down the line where now you know the interest capitalization schedule and you can take care of that interest before it capitalizes, because that is what grows your balance over time. Also ask about those borrower benefits. What benefits do they offer to you? That might look like maybe an interest rate reduction for automatic debit payments. If you get your monthly payments automatically deducted from your bank account. If you make a number of on-time payments, is there an interest rate reduction? But also, what protections are in place? Do they have any protection should you lose your income for whatever reason, or you're unable to make payment? And then, of course, considering your career and salary trajectory, particularly for those of you getting in public service work, if you are utilizing or want to utilize loan forgiveness programs, moving your federal loans that might be eligible for those loan forgiveness programs over to a private refinance loan, you will forfeit your ability to participate in loan forgiveness. So obviously knowing your career and salary trajectory is important to that consideration. So what it comes down to is this, and much of this I've talked through, but I believe in the power of repeating and reiterating. So consolidation, when to consider consolidation? When you have multiple federal loans, with multiple servicers or different loan types, right? You've got Perkins loans, or you've got older federal Stafford loans that are not direct loans. You might want to consider consolidation. If you want to take advantage of income-driven repayment plan options that maybe you currently don't have access to, and or you want to seek loan forgiveness options. You can consider refinancing when you have, or what you believe to have, a strong credit profile. You have reliable and steady income now, and as best as you can predict that in the foreseeable future. Why do I say that? Because again, with private loan options, you rarely have flexibilities should you not have that reliable income or steady income coming in. So that should be a consideration, as best as you can assume that you will have reliable and steady income. And then you want to save money and intend to pay off your loans in a quicker or more accelerated fashion. Some additional considerations, and I'll go over this quickly because again, consolidation might not pertain to many of you on the line. It just depends on how long you've been borrowing. But some things to know is that, with consolidation, that could give you lower monthly payments because it opens you up to additional repayment plan options. But keep in mind that lower monthly payments does typically mean that there will be more interest over time, particularly if you are not, and that's important to know, if you are not seeking loan forgiveness options, right? If you're seeking loan forgiveness options, you're probably going to be like, okay, thanks for the information, LeAndra, but I'm ultimately going to get loan forgiveness at the end of the day. But if you are not, and you're just, you're vying for those kind of lower monthly payments because your salary is such that you need that, just remember there is a cost to that action, and that is more interest accruing over time. Any outstanding interest that you have at the time that you consolidate, when that consolidation process is completed, that is what we call a triggering event for interest capitalization. So at the end of that consolidation being done and processed, any outstanding interest is added into the principal balance. And then for some people, they worked before coming to law school, and perhaps they were making eligible payments and qualifying employment for public service loan forgiveness before they came to law school. And it's taken a pause since they've been in law school. If you consolidate your loans after you've made some qualifying payments towards public service loan forgiveness, once that consolidation is processed, you will forfeit any prior eligible payments that you made towards public service loan forgiveness. That doesn't, many of you will, that doesn't factor for many of you, but if you think it is you, then I'm more than happy to talk with you on a more one-on-one basis to understand how that applies. Additional refinancing considerations, determine how much you'll save overall if you're going to refinance. This is a cost benefit analysis, and there are calculators that can help us do that. So we wanted to really kind of figure out, based on the number of years that you intend to pay your student loans off and the interest rate that you have been granted, how much is that going to save you versus what you would have paid on your federal student loans. Remember, refinancing changes your loan terms. It's a completely different loan with terms and new conditions, and flexible repayment plans and life events protections are generally not available, or not as flexible, I should say. They're generally limited with private loan products. So 3 things to remember. Consolidation and refinancing are not the same thing. Words matter. And in this instance, they do. So make sure you understand if you're talking about it, understand what you are actually asking for. Because especially in the private lending space, there is predatory lending, and they will entice you by calling something consolidation when it's actually a refinance. So now you've gone through this webinar, you know the difference between the two. Remember that consolidation and refinancing accomplish different goals, and we've gone through that. And consider more than just the interest rate. If you're seriously considering refinancing, you want to think about the fees, if there are any. You want to think about the repayment plan options, any protections, any borrower benefits, and your career and salary trajectory. So this is a puzzle, right? We put the pieces together. We've identified some of the facts. Make sure you understand those loan terms before you sign. Weigh those pros and cons based on your situation, your household information, and hopefully that will help you make the most informed decision for yourself. For those of you who need to log off, what I'm going to do is leave you with how you can get in touch with us. So if you are at a law school that is a max participating law school, and hopefully you'll know that, again, the majority of law schools are max participating law schools, you'll create your account through that Ask Aetna platform. And there's the website address down below. If your school is in the drop-down box, your school is a max participating school. So you can sign up for max one-on-one coaching. These are 30-minute coaching appointments with us as many times as you need. That's where you can access us. If you are not at a max participating school, that's okay. We also have our Access Connects coaching services, which we offer to anyone. So feel free to schedule time with us. It's the same team. You can schedule the appointment at accesslex.org/accessconnects. Okay, now let's see what questions we have. Let's pull those over. Okay, let's see. I am a military veteran. How does loan consolidation affect my PSLF eligibility? Does the loan repayment qualifications reset with consolidation? Hopefully, you saw that I addressed that in the presentation today. But because of the nuance, and many of these questions, I'm going to follow up by saying this. This is nuanced, y'all. I will not paint this as if this is a straightforward process. It is not, and I'm sure you know that, and some of you feel it. So that's why one-on-one coaching is important. We do this on a high level to talk about these pieces of the puzzle, but for effective strategizing, we need to talk more one-on-one. I would never generally advise you based on the limited information that I have available. I want to know you. I want to know your details, your loan information, to be able to talk through the strategies for you to consider and the route of what might be best for you. So I think I addressed that question for you, but if not, let's schedule some one-on-one time. I would absolutely want to make sure you know what you need for PSLF, okay? Okay, so I have several loans at one rate, 5.5. and several at a higher rate, 6.5. Can I consolidate two groups of loans, one for each group, to avoid the lower rate loans from pooling higher interest in a consolidation? I believe you can. You probably cannot do them at the same time. You certainly can identify, and in fact, when you go through the consolidation application, which is accessible through studentaid.gov, let me put that in the chat panel, studentaid.gov. You should be familiar with this website. It's where you go to complete your FAFSA, or the free application for federal student aid. It's where you went to complete entrance counseling when you started receiving federal loans, exit counseling when you were about to graduate. It's the same website. And when you go into that consolidation application, they pull forward all of your federal loans and ask you which ones you want to be considered in the consolidation. So I think you can separate them out. I just don't think you can do them at the same time. You have to allow one to process and finish, and then you can do the other. If you have questions about that, I would tell you schedule time with us, but also sometimes your servicer is the best provider of information, right? So we are a nonprofit. We are very knowledgeable and have expertise in these areas, but sometimes you need to go directly to who you will be paying your loans back to and make sure you are asking these questions to confirm, okay? So, so that's how I would answer that. Okay, and then I see you, okay, can you give a range of what kind of credit score could give a favorable interest rate if you choose to refinance versus consolidate? That is a really tough question to answer because there are so many private lenders out there. What I have noticed is that what I can say is what we generally see is that if they are offering you a variable interest rate, and I think this is the case with refinance loans, but any type of private loan product where they might offer you both an option of either variable or fixed. What they'll often do is you might see a lower interest rate that is offered to you for variable rates, right? And that's enticing, but you have to remember that variable rates are subject to change, and you have to determine for yourself if you are comfortable with a variable interest rate. Neither one is right or wrong. This is about your comfort level and your personal financial goals for yourself. So someone who is leaning more towards refinancing, if they have a goal to accelerate paying their loans in 3 to 5 years, like an incredibly aggressive goal, they might be more comfortable with a variable interest rate because they know they are only, based on their goal, going to be paying their loans off in 3 to 5 year period. So they're okay with that variable interest rate being subjected to change. But if you're going to be taking years to pay off those loans, you have to ask yourself if you're going to be comfortable with that variable interest rate over years, because you don't know what that interest rate is subjected to change to over time. Some people cringe at the idea of a variable interest rate, right? So they know for themselves, I am not comfortable with a variable interest rate. I am going to go with the fixed, and I understand that this lender then is going to, the only option I have is a higher fixed interest rate compared to the variable rate that they were dangling in front of me. So it really is going to come down to your tolerance and your personal preference with that. But this is a larger conversation, and why as financial coaches, we talk about understanding holistically what financial goals you have, because then that helps us shape the micro level of the decisions that we make around refinancing our student loans and which interest rate we receive. Interest rates, they can use credit score range, but they can also look at your salary, your anticipated salary, to determine the kind of interest rate that they're going to offer you. They can also look at your total overall loan indebtedness. So how much loan amount do you have among federal, private student loans, to then go into the equation of what interest rate they are going to offer you. So yes, we think of credit scores as being one of the being the factor, but they actually can factor more in when determining which interest rate or what interest rate they're going to offer you. I know that is not a very straightforward answer. I'm going to hit you with the lawyer response, which is It depends, because with personal finance, it does depend. And especially when you talk about private lenders, it can, and there being many of them, it can depend. But hopefully that was helpful. Okay. I know we are over on time, so if you have to log off, please do so. I know there were questions that came in beforehand, and I think we addressed most of those, but I will take a quick peek just to be sure. Someone asked, is there a best time to consolidate? And I'll pose that with consolidating or refinancing. Consolidation, you cannot consolidate your federal student loans while in school, I don't believe. So while you're in school, I don't think you can consolidate. But after you graduate, anytime thereafter, you can consolidate. Some people make the decision if they want to consolidate while they're in their grace period. So remember, the grace period is that 6-month period that you get after you graduate or drop below half-time status, where you are not required to make payments. So they think of it as this a cushion that they give you before you have to officially enter repayment. You get a one-time 6-month grace period. So once you have utilized a grace period on your federal student loans, you do not receive another one. So if you didn't take time off from law school and you're graduating, you'll get your one-time 6-month grace period. You can consolidate in the grace period, but once you consolidate, once that consolidation process is complete, you will forfeit the rest of your grace period. So, you might just, if you are going to consolidate, it's not something necessarily that you have to do immediately. It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Refinancing, it also depends. Obviously inflation and interest rates right now are a huge factor. But I would also add to your consideration, one of the bullet points that I said earlier: how stable and secure do you feel in your current job opportunity or your current position? And sometimes you just maybe want to give it some time to see how you feel in this new position, to get your footing, to say to yourself, okay, I think I'm going to be here for 1 year or 3 years or 5 years, and I can anticipate this salary or my salary increasing. And okay, now I feel pretty secure now that I feel comfortable with going ahead to refinance. So that could be a year later from you graduating. That could be 2 years later from you graduating. It really just kind of depends, but you should do that assessment for yourself. Remember, stability is a good part of this. Unless you have additional supports in place, where if you were to lose your income, there's resources there to help you continue paying those student loans on your private refinance loan. Okay. I'll stop there. Again, I want to be respectful of time and check the chat panel one more time. Okay, I see that question that came in at 9:10. When is the best time to consolidate? Did I answer your question? Can you put that in the chat panel for me, yes or no? Okay, good deal. But if you have, again, specific questions, feel free, let's schedule some one-on-one time. It costs you nothing other than time. It costs you time to schedule these calls, but please do. This is one of the most favorite things about what we do. We come from all different backgrounds. Some of us have worked for servicers before. Some of us are former financial aid administrators. Some of us are former deans of students. So we come from a variety of backgrounds, and we love to be able to talk with you one-on-one. So please feel free to utilize us to talk about your situation. Okay, with that, we have come to the end. Tracy, I will check in with you.
Well, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us, and a special thank you to LeAndra Ross. She has done a number of these programs for us, and we really appreciate her spending her time and her sharing her expertise with everyone. So we hope that you'll join us for upcoming virtual office hour programming. So be sure to visit abaforlawstudents.com for the full lineup. And we wish everyone a good night. Thank you.
Take care.